Haney Biz presents Entrepreneurs Unlimited. Here's your host, Mark Haney.
How often are you at your very best? On a typical workday, how many minutes are you at your absolute best? Is it like 30 minutes? 60 minutes on a given day? It's tough to know that. We were at spring training. I'm wearing my Giant shirt. We were at spring training the other day. I was there with Marcus and my wife, and we were watching the hitters as they approached the plate. And especially after the veterans had gone off the field, the younger guys had come in and started getting their at-bats. And it was interesting to think about what must be in their head. Their minds must be fully focused in trying to determine, how do I hit the middle of this baseball? How do I get in the batter's box and be the very best? Even though it's just spring training for the veterans, for these guys, it's a job interview. It is everything. Every at-bat matters. And it made me just think about, okay, so when they're at that moment, they are doing everything in their power to be at their very best, right? You could see their little routines that happen, right, as they step into the batter's box. They fix their wristbands and they tap their cleats with the bat. They step into the batter's box. They look at the bat to gain focus on what the ball might look like as it's over the plate. They do the little, get the shirt out, and then they put the bat on their shoulders and look toward the pitcher. And just that routine that they develop in order to put themselves in the right mindset, it really had me kind of captured at that moment. And it just made me think, do I take my job that seriously? Am I that focused? Am I at my very best at all during a given workday? Or I'm here with my good buddies Marcus Haney and Tom Cisneros, and I was just, how many minutes a day are you at your very best, Tom?
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Very best.
You know, you wake up in the morning, you do your thing, and I've got a routine. We were talking about that earlier today, and I'd like to think that I come in really strong, and it's like, man, I'm 90% of the time. Then I really start thinking about it. It's 80% of the time. Next thing I know I could do better. I know I need to be more focused. I don't think I'm alone there. I really don't. How do you feel about that, Marcus?
No, absolutely. I think that staying focused is a challenge for everybody, you know, with all the distractions around the workplace and whatnot. I mean, me and my team, we do a morning meeting at 8:30 every morning, and that's, hey, hyper-focus time. Let's talk about what the tasks of the day are going to be and how we're going to knock it out of the park.
But don't you think that focus is really what allows you to be at your very best? Because when you're kind of not so focused, you're not at your very best.
Right.
And isn't it those moments when you're at your very best that's when the magic happens,
Absolutely.
right? That's when you get better. That's when you test your limits. That's when you really determine who you are, right?
Yeah,
is when you're at your very
question.
best.
No question.
And I think it also shows your team around you of, hey, I'm at my very best. It helps everybody rise to the top.
And so you think about the routines, right? These hitters go into the batter's box a certain way every time. Marcus, you and your team, you meet at the same time each day to determine how you're going to win the day. What are the routines that an entrepreneur ought to have as they get up in the morning to tackle the day, to try to figure out a way to win the morning? What kind of routines do you think that we ought to have?
Well, in all honesty, you wake up earlier than anybody I've ever met in my life, but and it's not
I don't even sleep.
Right, there we go. That's square one.
Exactly.
Right?
You gotta sleep.
But in all reality, I mean, you have an internal alarm clock. We were talking about the fact that I've got one. You probably have one. I can't remember the last time I listened to an alarm clock and it actually woke me up. I'm up and around when my body says, okay, it's time. But from that point forward, I have an exact routine, and I suffice it to say, you probably do as well, where you do things in sequence just because it creates these efficiencies, right?
Yeah, there's no question about it. Because I'm a C student, I can only take so much in. I've got to keep things simple. And what I've found in my 52 years of, I'm not the most organized guy
Doesn't
in the
look
world.
a day over 30.
Right, yeah. But when you're somebody who is not really a multitasker, you've got to simplify things. And for me, it's helped to create routines so that this is going to sound crazy, but I want to make less decisions, right? Every time I have to make a decision, it slows me down a little bit. I second guess, or I do whatever I do that it takes bandwidth to make a decision. So if I can create a routine that takes decision making out of it, it becomes kind of second nature, like fixing my wrist straps, tap on my cleats, looking at the bat over home plate, facing the pitcher in a certain way every time. I really don't think about those routines. They kind of happen naturally. Turn on the shower, put it into a certain thing. I mean, some of these things just happen.
It's a habit.
Kind of like
absolutely.
a habit.
Yeah.
Once things become a habit, really, they don't bog you down anymore, and it really allows you to focus on the speed of the pitch, right? What's the count? All these little subtleties about how to win, right? Because
execute.
Right, how to execute. So for me, you're right. I get up early. I have a routine, and we all have. It may not work for everybody to get up early. It just happens to be that way for me. I like to get up. I like to do my exercise. I like to do different things like that. Put myself in the right mindset to win the day. But one thing, just thinking about this is Tom, you and I, you're a music guy, and Marcus, I know you don't listen to. We all listen to country music. But I'm kind of stuck in that 70s music a little bit. And I have a routine when I do this show, I want to be at my very best, right? If I can't be at my very best in a given work day, well, maybe on Saturdays when I come in here to do the radio show, maybe I can be at my very best for once for the week. And so I really create, and I have this routine throughout the week that's a little bit different. But my show day, my Saturday morning is really very simple. And I get up and I make sure I've got my notes together with the show. I've done some prep in the prior days, but I turn on the music, right? And I have the playlist on my phone, and I have that same sequence of music that really puts me in the right mood, right? It puts me in the mood to be at my very best, and it's that pattern that really, I know when I come through the KHTK studios on Saturday morning to do my job, I am going to have my mindset in the right place. And each of those songs on my playlist means something to me. The first one that comes up it reminds me of my wife. The second one that comes up reminds me of Jerry Wallace and John Wallace's father and what he might be thinking. The third one comes up is about it's Dream On, and it's just something that gets me rocking. But and then the later they come in, and it reminds me of my grandchildren or my children, and so it puts me in that zone where it puts everything in perspective, so I can come in and be me here on the show. And what I would challenge, I guess, all of us to do is, maybe we shouldn't wait till Saturday morning when it's the big game day, right? Maybe we ought to get up on Monday morning, play that same set of music, take that same level of intensity so that when we walk through the office doors, or when we walk on the construction site, or when we jump in front of that first customer of the day at his office to do our job, we are treating it like it's game day. Like we are stepping into the batter's box. We've prepped ourselves. We've tightened the wristbands. We are ready to play.
Game on.
Coming up in the show, we are going to talk to two guys who are finding a way to focus and grow their business. Today on the show, you will hear from Mito Eldon, the founder and CEO of TeamSphere. But first, you will get to know the man behind Flint Builders, Mr. John Stump. John and his partners recently purchased Flint and is on pace to really do some great things in the industry and build a number of buildings that are off the charts. And we will be back. This is Entrepreneurs Unlimited on Sports 1140, streaming live, podcast, and YouTube at handybiz.com. All right, and welcome back. We are here with John Stump, CEO and majority owner of Flint Builders. How you doing today, John?
Good, Mark.
Thank you for coming down. We rousted you out of bed, and now you're a construction guy. You probably get up pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, pretty early.
All right, so we are here to find out your entrepreneurial story. Tell us about Flint Builders overview, and tell us a little bit about the company. Then I want to get into how you purchased it.
Well, we're a commercial contractor. We do anything vertical. We've spent a lot of our time in the education market. Done probably about $250 million out at UC Davis.
Wow.
Focus on design build type of delivery, which means that we're involved early. The architect works for us, and it's a single team that provides ultimately a product that achieves the owner's goals with regard to budget and when they need a project delivered. We can expedite or accelerate the process simply because we're in control of design and construction. We overlap the two. We've gotten involved in all different types of exciting projects, from air traffic control towers, hotels and casinos, the Ace Rail maintenance facility down in Stockton. We get excited about building.
Yeah.
And so you name it, we'll do it. But we have found ourselves really focused on just a few markets primarily, which is medical office buildings, hotels, casinos, and education sector.
You're working on one out there at Thunder Valley right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, we
out
just
there?
started that, and basically we're going to renovate their hotel. When they built the hotel, they left a couple floors as shell space to develop at a later time when the economy was better. We're going to start by building those out, and then we're going to move up the floors and basically rotate rooms and levels out of service while we fully renovate them. At the same time, we're going to do a new metal panel facade on the outsides. We're fully scaffolding the tower. And the whole idea is to go quickly and efficiently with high quality, but without any impact to the guests. So there's a lot of logistics and a lot of planning right now.
Now, you said that the architect works for you. Is that different than some other guys that are just going out and doing a bid?
It's different. It's what we prefer. It's more collaborative. We get to work with the designers and the owner and understand what their needs are. A hard bid is more that all happens in advance of us being involved. We would look at the documents, provide a bid based upon only what we see on those drawings, without a lot of the history. And then typically it's a fire drill. It's bringing in a whole bunch of subs, and it's a little bit of control chaos at the beginning in a hard bid. And it's just we can succeed in that environment, but we don't prefer it. We prefer to be involved well in advance.
Now, tell us about the acquisition. How long ago did this happen, and how did you go about acquiring Flint Builders?
So in 2013, I was told by the owners of the company that they were basically didn't have a concrete succession plan whereby a 3-generation company had family members that were ready to step in. And they made the difficult decision to get out of the construction business. And
so you're an employee at the company. I think you were vice president at the time?
Right.
Okay, so then they decided they want to exit.
Yeah, and construction's an easy business, relatively easy business to get into. It's a hard business to get out of, and it's really because you always have projects that are starting at different times, that are at different phases of completion, and those employees and the subs and the owners all have a real interest in having a cohesive team that's there for the long term, and to just all of a sudden say, "Oh, we're getting out," that doesn't work. And the employees also, good employees, want to be at a place that they have a future, and so that was really, for me, it was okay. How do we do this? And I think that transition for me happened when we were really talking about, okay, do we sell this? Do we wind it down? And initially, I hadn't even considered, do we, as employees, kind of take the ball and run?
How did the switch flip where you decided, okay, guys, let's do this?
It was really out of necessity. We were having to tell the employees what was going on and said, okay, we're going to do one of these. We're going to basically we were focused on let's sell this. And what I realized is that instability can be crushing because change can be difficult, but it's difficult when you know what the change is, and it's even more difficult when you don't.
So you're as an employee, you know your business is for sale. You just don't know who the new owners are going to be.
Yeah.
What a challenging situation. I have seen that before. When we come back, we are going to share more of that story, the drama that can unfold in purchasing a company from its original owners of 3 generations. I'm Mark Haney. This is Entrepreneurs Unlimited on Sports 1140 KHTK, streaming live, podcast, and YouTube at haneybiz.com. And we are back with John Stump, CEO and majority owner of Flint Builders. John and his team recently acquired Flint Builders from the Flint family, and we're talking about that acquisition. I'm wondering what's going through your mind as you're acquiring. You're the vice president of a company. Now you've taken over the company because of some changes, and you and the team decide to buy it out. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of I would assume that there's a lot of stress involved in that kind of big change. Tell us what was going through your mind.
Yeah, so at one point, and I would say as an overlying theme to what happened when you look back on it, it was really just looking for a solution to get through, to transition and meet the Flint family's goals of getting out of the business. And really that focus on how to make them successful in doing that is where we arrived at, the best way to manage the closeout of the company under the ownership and liability of the existing owners was to get another company going right away and to give that future, that vision for the employees to know that we're going somewhere. And because of construction, the way I described it, and you got sureties that are involved and insurance companies and warranties on past projects, there's a big tail on that. And so what you do, and what I ultimately learned, and I learned this from a trusted advisor that I discovered in this process, Craig Boyce at BFBA, is that you set up the new company. We got the Flint family to invest in that company. And that new company, we transferred everything that the old company had, the people, the equipment, the resources, everything moved over to the new company. And the new company basically winded down the old company.
And as we talk about risk, I see my good friend Doug Esposito of Owen Dunn Insurance, and Owen Dunn's one of our sponsors, and they do construction type of risk management services and insurance services. And the risk is in these projects, they contain a lot of risk, but what about just the risk of you've got it hanging out on the line as an owner, right? You've got personal liability now.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Well, I'm kind of a risky guy. I was the one that was always jumping off of cliffs or doing crazy things growing up. So yeah,
So this is no big deal.
I thrive in that environment naturally, but I will say
$100 million projects, not scary?
Yeah, it is, but maybe not as scary as it would be for some people. But I did call a friend of mine, Jordy, who owns a framing company, and I asked him about putting a personal guarantee on a surety on a bond, and you are basically putting everything you have ever built, all your wealth that you have built since you started working, you are hanging it out there on the line. I mean, they're having your wife sign that thing, and you got your firstborn on the line. So that was scary, and I talked to Jordy about it, and I said, hey, how do you deal with that? And he said what you do is you think you make sure you got it straight in your head that the most important thing you have is your family. And that you could, as long as you got them and the things that are important to you, nothing else matters. All that wealth that you have struggled to build, you can build it again. And so anyway, he said, you just got to flip that switch in your head and go for it, and that's what we did. And that's once you flip that switch, it's on.
It's a mindset, and at the beginning of the show, we were talking about the mindset that it takes to step into the batter's box to hit the middle of a baseball, and that must take when you come in the morning, I know you live a little ways away, your office is in Roseville, and you've got a 30, 40-minute commute. When you're coming into the office, what goes through your head? Are you on the phone with your team, or are you putting yourself in some kind of mindset so that when you walk through those office doors, you are ready to kick some tail?
Yeah, so I guess my routine starts in the shower. Most of my good ideas come in the shower.
Okay, I see how it is.
And
this is a G-rated show, by the way. PG. You can go PG. It's cool.
And so anyway, I'm kind of thinking through my day, thinking about what's important, who I need to talk to, and it's usually people related. I'm thinking about the people that need to be involved in something that I need to touch base with, and I'm by the time I get through my morning and on through my drive, I'm usually hit the office and I'm rolling. Like I'm going 100 miles a minute.
You're right in the middle of the thick of how to win.
Right.
Very cool. And you mentioned family. I want to, we only have a minute or so left, but I know your family is very important to you. Tell us a little bit about your family and about who stood by you during these tumultuous times in acquiring the company.
Yeah, so my family's amazing, and it's picture perfect. We were at Great America yesterday for opening day, and surprisingly, it wasn't crazy. But it's I'm blessed. And my wife asked me not far into this process. She's all, remind me again why we're doing this. She's my rock, and she's stable. She manages everything in a way that I don't have to worry when I'm gone. And when I come home, it's just I have a very pleasant home life, and it's nice.
The family, wife in particular, allowing John Stump to stay focused, to reach his entrepreneurial dreams. Coming up after the break, you're going to meet the developer of an incredibly cool social media platform targeted at one of my passions, youth and high school and team sports. You are going to meet Mito Eldon, the founder of TeamSphere. This is Entrepreneurs Unlimited on Sports 1140 KHTK, streaming live, podcast, and YouTube at haneybiz.com. All right, and we are here with Mito Eldon, founder and CEO of My TeamSphere. How you doing today, Mito?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
I knew this day would come. We've known each other for a little bit, and you've been working on this project, and things are starting to happen. Tell us about the project. Tell us about your social media platform and what inspired you to get this going.
Sure. Well, My TeamSphere is a social media platform for youth sports, and we've been working on it for, I'd say, about 2.5 years now. But really what it does is it makes youth sports easy. Whatever your involvement, whether you're a coach, whether you're a parent, team mom or dad, youth sports gets to be really stressful. We have stressful lives at work, and then after work you have these practices and you have obligations, and it's just a lot of stress. So the platform that we built makes it easy to participate in youth sports. It helps people communicate. It helps people to share photos and videos. And we launched it last fall, and we've just gotten really good adoption, and people really like it.
Yeah, it allows the coaches to coach, the team moms to do what they do, and the communication is so much more easy. Now, how many users do you have out there now?
So we launched about 6 weeks ago after our beta this fall, and we've gotten 1,000 users just over the last 30 days.
Wow. That's incredible. And so now tell us about what it took to go from like zero to where you're at today. What's happened?
Do you mean zero from the very beginning?
Yeah, give us this quick synopsis of what happened at the beginning and then how you actually launched it.
Well, the most important thing, so my background was in software development, and we kind of knew how to build a social platform. that connected people. And so we built this network that was for small groups. And then when we looked at the data last spring, which was kind of the general platform, we saw that people were using it for situations where there was kids and an adult. And so I would say that the most important thing for us in our evolution was looking at the data and understanding how people were actually using it and then building off that. And that's what inspired us to go into youth sports, because we saw some teams starting to use it and they really liked communicating through it.
Now, you're building an app. Is there a revenue model associated with this platform?
Absolutely. So right now the app is free. But really what we did is we focused on the money side of youth sports because that's a major pain point. Youth sports are very expensive. So we wanted to keep the platform free, whereas other companies charge between $100 to $150 per season. But what we do is we allow the team or the club or the league to place sponsor messaging. And so in order for them to do that, they pay us a flat fee per team per month, and that's how we make our revenue. Or we can place our own sponsors. So once we have 1,000 teams or 2,000 teams, we might go to like a Nike and say, hey, how would you like to have your brand published across all these youth sports teams?
So it's free for the players and the families and the coaches. What a great thing for you to be able to provide that kind of service free as compared to people who are charging money. But now, how long before you can actually drive revenue? What's the time frame?
I would say that we'll be driving revenue here in about the next 6 months. We're talking to some very large leagues across the country that are interested, one on the East Coast, one in Las Vegas, and one here. And so, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. You get the audience, then you go to the sponsors, and you put the two together, and I think we're going to be able to drive revenue in about the next 6 months.
And what's the plan for scaling the business?
So the app can scale, myteamsphere.com. I had to throw that in there because my good friend Greg told me to.
Yes.
So the app will scale virally across teams, and we're already seeing that happening. We haven't done any formal marketing yet. And then it will also get adopted at the league level. So we can be adopted both by leagues as well as teams. And so we're seeing teams pop up all over the country, and now we're in discussions with some leagues all over the country.
And at some point, will you go out to raise capital to build the business, or is this going to be bootstrapped?
We've been bootstrapped up to this point, but certainly we validated the technology, we validated the product market fit, we know that people like it. So at this point, I think it's more risky to not raise capital to try and bootstrap it than to try and bootstrapping. Bootstrapping really allows you to mitigate your risk while you try and find the key to what you're building. But once you found it, you really got to, put the pedal to the metal, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay, so you feel like you have created the I call it the Shock'em, the differentiated model that has the ability to scale, that's very well liked, and now you're looking to raise money? Is that where you're at?
That's exactly right. So the structure we built, it's really the other day I was having lunch with someone, and she said the amazing thing about this is that it's really sophisticated but really simple, and it's hard to achieve the two things at the same time, and we did that. So it's built on a full cloud platform, Amazon server, so it could scale very quickly and very big.
Well, it's very cool. You get it's photo sharing is only one component of it, but the photo sharing is actually in a sphere, and the way you pick out the actual photo is really cool and unique. Do you have defensibility built into your business model? In other words, can somebody come in and take what you've done and just copy it?
It's hard to get defensibility in software because people can code things differently. But having said that, we're talking about a platform that took over 2 years to build. It's over 40,000 lines of code. And I would really say that the secret sauce is the rules, the internal logic that is not visible to anybody. So for example, when a game is complete and you've won, we send a notification to all the players and the parents saying the game was won or lost.
Okay.
And that prompts people to add photos or videos, and then that prompts more notifications to go out. So it's the sequence of events that causes the platform to be successful, not just what you're looking at on the screen.
Gotcha. And just kind of as we wrap up, I have to think about, okay, so starting a business like this is kind of a situation where you've got your existing life, I suppose, and then you decide you're in software, and then you decide to venture out and start an entrepreneurial venture. What goes through your mind when you're making those changes, that changeover?
So the first thing is that you have a passion about what you want to do and you enjoy it. If you have that, it allows you to sustain through the difficulties of moving forward through it. But you have to think about the downsides. You have to think about what it's going to take, how much effort. You know, I have a family. My wife is here, my daughter, and you have to think about how it's going to affect everybody. But you use your passion and you put it out there. You know, you and I met. You know, I just called you up and said, hey, I want to come over and talk to you, tell you about what I want to do and what we've done. And, you know, you don't need to ask for anything. You just tell people what you're doing and you share your passion. And before you know it, you start to get a momentum that sustains you. And that's what's really exciting.
And we talked about focus a little bit at the beginning of the show. And I'm wondering how you manage to stay focused where you've got your previous job, or are you still working at your other?
Still working, yeah.
You still got the other gig going. So you still got the other thing going, and yet you're able to focus so much time and attention on My Team Sphere. How do you pull that off?
Well, the most difficult thing that I would say to anybody is that in the initial phases of anything, you get excited. But then you actually hit the road bumps and the obstacles, and that's where you start to maybe have some self-doubt. You start to not know if it's going to work out, and that's where the focus is most in danger. And so at those times, you have to remind yourself that losing focus is going to happen, but that you have to remind yourself to refocus. So whenever I find myself kind of drifting in my thoughts, not quite knowing what I need to do, I ask myself, what is my strategic imperative today? And that lets me focus on the exact thing that I should be working on.
Very, very cool. Using focus to build a business. Now, Mino, just as final question here, who is your beautiful family is right outside in the window, and I know they have stood by you. They're standing by you today. Is there anybody else who's been key in helping you build My Team Sphere?
There's been a lot of people. I have my good friend and partner who's down in Los Angeles, of course. My family, my wife, is Kelly, who's supported me. I love her very much. But I would say that this is really the culmination of my father and my mother deciding to emigrate to the U.S. from Egypt. They did that so that I could have an opportunity, and they had a lot of difficulties. But this is really the culmination for me to be able to have an idea, to be passionate about it, and to grow it. Is the culmination of their vision in coming to this country. So, of course, I have to give them my thanks and my love.
Mito Eldon, CEO and founder of My Team Sphere. I want to thank you for coming on the show today, Mito. And I also want to thank John Stump of Flint Builders. You were both fantastic. We've been talking about focus. I'm going to turn the focus a little bit over to saying thank you. And, you know, I got a card in the mail from one of my sponsors. And I always, you know, these days you don't get a lot of thank you cards, right? People send the email, hey, thanks a lot, stuff like that. Maybe you'll get a phone call. But things, I think a lot of times have become less personalized in terms of sharing your appreciation. And so I want to bring up a card that I got from a person that's important to me and important to the show, and that's Kim Silvers of Silvers HR. She's a sponsor of the show, and we were able to help drive some business her way, and she wanted to say thank you. And she said it in a way that I'll never forget. And I think that's, you know, when people say thank you and then they say it in a way that you'll never forget, now that's a real thank you. And so I got to acknowledge this. I'm saying thank you for a thank you card. You know, that's kind of an interesting thought. But she did something. She wrote a nice long note and believing in what we're doing and changing the way entrepreneurs, you know, the igniting the entrepreneurial revolution and so on. But, you know, she's been a friend, but she did something very unique. She sent me a gift certificate for a bottle of wine. And I'm more of a beer guy, but my wife loves wine, and she knew that. She took that extra time to know that. She went over to Lakeside Liquors, which is one of my places I've been known to show up now and again with my wife because they have wine tasting over there. But she got me a very generous gift certificate, and I just got to say thank you for doing that. Kim, just so you know, Silvers HR, they do They do everything that an HR manager can do for you in your business, right? So if you're as your business grows a little bit, any of our businesses, you end up with people, right? And you love them, but there's complications associated with employees, right? You got to have personnel policies. You've got to have rules for how you handle hiring, firing, discipline, and all the compliance that goes in to running a business here in the great state of California. It's not the easiest thing to do. And so you may be one of those companies that's got 10, 20, 30 employees, and maybe you're not quite ready for that HR manager yet. Well, Silver's HR is that HR manager for you. You can use your existing office manager, or maybe it's you that kind of manages the HR function. You haven't quite got the HR manager yet, but you're ready but you need some help. Silver's HR is the company that takes care of that. So if I can send you more business, Kim, I definitely will. I intend to. And to anybody who may be listening that has that 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 employees and is thinking about, do I get an HR manager? I want you to think of Kim Silvers, and I want you to think, if you go do business with Kim and Silvers HR, you're pretty likely to get me some wine, right? So I got a nice gift certificate of some wine, and my wife likes wine, and that's good for me. You want to help me help Kim, okay? So you help Kim, I get helped, because my wife likes it when I bring home gift certificates for wine, so that ends up being a good thing. So please consider Silver's HR. Consider if you want to be introduced to any of our sponsors, whether it be Owned Done Insurance, 5-Star Bank, or Limitless, right? LL916.com. You want to know these guys. I am your connecting point, and I am happy to help you. And you may just have a question about, hey, how does small business financing work? And I can probably give you some basic info, and I might hook you up with my buddies over at 5-Star. May be able to do the same thing in the way of insurance or anything else that's associated with how do I build a small business. I'm probably your guy. And that kind of brings me to the second part of this segment is people have been asking a little bit more for Coach Haney. Mark, we like it when you talk about your history and share some of your information. And there's so many times I remember as a guy growing up in business, I didn't have anybody to turn to that had that experience. It was maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years older, but had walked in my shoes, right? That entrepreneur next door that I could just go, hey, bounce, do the kind of bounce it off you type of stuff. And at Haney Biz, we're thinking about the best way for us to help you. We're introducing you to guys like Mito and John Stump, who are real world entrepreneurs who are doing some really cool stuff. But in addition to that, we want to help you. So we've started putting out shorter posts. We call it the Haney Biz Project at this time. And it's really me sharing a little bit of some tips and tricks that I've picked up, some mistakes I've made along the way. And they're little 3 or 4 minute videos that we're posting on YouTube and Facebook and so on. So you can go to like us on Facebook or follow us on any of the social media platforms. Just go to haneybiz.com, and it really takes care of everything. But you can see some shorter segments. You don't have to listen to the full 48-minute show, and you can just go in there and get kind of like your daily dose of Mark. And my goal is to help you out. My goal is to inspire you, maybe teach you a little bit. And really, I think entrepreneurs are so good for society. If I can help build entrepreneurship, help you build your entrepreneurial venture here in our community, you know what? That I'm doing my job. As you succeed, I succeed. And that's really what this show is all about. So coming back, we are going to talk about focus. We're going to talk about how focus can help your business. I'm going to share a quick story, and we'll be able to kind of gain a better understanding really about how focus might help you in business and beyond. This is Entrepreneurs Unlimited on Sports 1140 KHDK, streaming live, podcast, and YouTube at haneybiz.com. All right, and we are talking initially and even throughout the show about focus and how being focused really enables you to find the greatness inside of you. All right, you can go through your day and you wake up at the end of, at the end of the day, you kind of look back at the day and did I really, was there ever a point in time where I was at my very best, my absolute best, where I made a real impact? And there's days that go by where I know that I wasn't at my very best. There wasn't one moment in the entire day where I was at my very best. And I think at the end of the day, maybe we ought to consider evaluating ourselves, right, Tom? I mean, how many times are you at your very best ever?
No.
Ever?
I would
Come
like
on
to.
now.
I would like to think I am, but
says
that's
that
not the
sometimes
case.
you are.
Don't bring double D into this.
Oh, sorry, Danelle. How about you, Marcus? You ever at your very best throughout the day? I mean, your very best, like stepping into that batter's box.
That hyper focus is tough to come by sometimes. So I want to say yes, really, really bad, but unfortunately, I think I miss the mark a lot of times. I think that's a lot of people do.
We need to be better about
I think
that.
we do, and I think it's just sort of a conscious decision that maybe we ought to evaluate ourselves at the end of the day, and go, how did I do? And maybe that will prompt a change on how we focus and maybe even where we focus. Yeah. Was I working on the most productive things, the things that really tie to what I'm trying to accomplish? Or was I majoring in the minors, so to speak, and just focusing on, all these little things that really are almost, they're not necessary. And so, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, eliminating decisions from your life it keeps things more clear so you can focus better. And because when you have all these things coming at you, many times that really just bogs you down and you can't be at your best when you've got the stress of so many things happening. And one of the things that I've done, and I'm going to tell a quick story here, that I have done to eliminate some of that stress and allow myself to focus is all about stopping the procrastination doom loop, right?
Yeah.
You start procrastinating, you put stuff off. Next thing you know, you got a handful of things that are sort of weighing on you, and they affect you. I'm not at my best. I'm not clearly focused, like stepping into the batter's box. And it reminds me of this story of being in 7th grade, and it really is about 2 7th graders and a tennis racket and a dirty garage. So there's these two guys. One guy thinks he's Juan Marichal, right? He's pitching, right? And he's got the big leg kick and everything. That's me. And I'm throwing to a guy that's on my baseball team, Robbie Bosco. Some of you guys have heard of him. He was led BYU to a national championship, Heisman Trophy runner-up. So this guy's a real athlete. And then and he's Reggie Jackson, right? So Juan Marichal is throwing to Reggie Jackson, and Robbie's got the tennis racket, the wooden tennis racket. And so here I am, high leg kick, and Robbie, this guy can play every sport, including baseball, and he cracks the tennis ball out of the park. Well, he also cracked the tennis racket, and it was my sister's tennis racket.
That wasn't your tennis racket, was it?
Sister's tennis racket, and it was just a little crack, no big deal. So anyway, at the end of the night, we got brothers and sisters are all home, and I throw the tennis racket over in the corner of the garage, and kind of forget about it. This is like springtime. This is like now, right? It's the beginning of baseball season, and then summer rolls around, and my sister decides she wants to go out and play tennis. And she's hunting around the garage for the tennis racket and so on. Finally finds the tennis racket, and guess what? Tennis racket's cracked. She's a year older. Mom, the tennis racket's cracked. I don't have it. And there does anybody know my mom, does anybody know who cracked the tennis racket? And there I am going, oh, geez, I forgot all about that, right? Just as a 7th grader, you got all these different things. I forgot all about it. It was barely cracked. I threw it in the corner.
It was her second time playing tennis, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it was no big deal. I was happy to pay for it. It was one of those things that was just, I procrastinated. I threw it over in the corner. I'll tell her later. And I forgot about it. And those things, they add up. Those little tennis rackets add up in your life. It's like, oh, I got the tennis racket over there. I got this other thing over here. I got a customer complaint over there. Those little nagging things that you tend to put off, they're distractions, and they weigh on you, and they kill your ability to focus. Now, my mother looked around at us, and she saw me guilty as heck, and she said, Mark, you're grounded for the entire summer. Now imagine that, a 7th grader
1 minute.
grounded for the entire summer.
Buzzkill.
Buzzkill. It was horrible. I'll never forget it. I try not to procrastinate. I don't. My garage is clean. I can guarantee you that right now. And as this music comes on, I want to wrap up the show with just a shout out to all the people that are fighting this war on terrorism, and a special shout out to their acknowledgement of the people in Brussels and all the victims. Just a moment of silence for the people of Brussels. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And I guess I'll just wrap it up with this. Never above you. Never below you. Always by your side.